I really appreciate it. In addition to looking back on those 20 years I've been in the user experience industry, I feel like I've hit like different milestones. There's different skill sets that I've learned over the years. And I'd say about 8 years ago, I really started working heavily in Agile. And I really wanted to see how we could get user research to be optimized to work with Agile teams. Because a lot of times before, when teams are working in waterfall, we try to get enough time up front to do research. It'd be a big in-depth study, and then it would be like that waterfall process where you kind of go on to the next step. But what I found really works much better is to really embrace like the agile principles and ensuring that the team is involved in the research, and they get closer to the end users, and really develop that deep empathy. And then also working in iterations with the research so it can fit into agile product cycles. So that's something I've really worked to refine and also adapt to different product teams, different customer needs, different user needs, and also just different ways of working. So I'm hoping today you can take away some insights that may help you of bringing in more agile techniques for user research into your teams. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about how we work at Kroger. So I really believe like the way that we work is really helping to enable that user research and ensuring that we keep our customers and our users at the center of what we do. At Kroger Technology and Digital, across that part of the organization, we are very much in tune to the customer experience. We also have teams working on employee experiences as well, because we really strongly believe if you can invest in the employee experience, you're also helping them to better serve our customers. So our product teams range across customer and employee focused products. And we work in a way that's called product led. And this is really modeled after the book Inspired by Marty Kagan. But it's the idea that if you can enable your product teams, your cross functional product teams, to solve problems for your customers and really be set up to collaborate and trust each other, that's where you have success. So obviously, like, we still need to partner with other parts of the organization. We need to be closely connected to our business partners. But the product team is really working to solution together, inspired by research. And so that has really made a key difference, I think, just seeing the product-led organization come to life at Kroger. And it enables us to be like very nimble and continue to like iteratively learn and optimize. So looking even further under the hood on how we work, we partner with our business organization, and then we work to involve solutions that are desirable for our customers, feasible from a technical standpoint, they're viable for the team to produce, and then also usable for our end users. So it's a very key that we have that cross collaboration across the different areas of expertise on the product team, that everyone's involved every step of the way, and that we stay really focused on our end users. So when you see that top layer there where it says understanding, this is where research comes in, that we do more what's called generative research. So before we go and try to solve a problem, we want to make sure we're focused on the right problem. So this is where we'll interview users, we'll observe them in their environment, maybe have some contextual questions we may ask them to learn more. But in that phase, we really want to kind of like step back and not get too tied to an idea, and just learn from our users and how we can solve their problems. So that inspires our discovery phase. There we typically use the design sprint process. So there's a book by Jake Knapp of Google Ventures called Sprint. And this book talks about the design sprint process, and it really leverages a lot of principles of design thinking, that you take that inspiration from the research and you have a cross-functional team work together side by side to help ideate on that. We've adapted shifted that to a remote environment now that we're all working remotely, but it allows you to go through a process of working together in a very agile way to determine like what is the right problem, how are we going to solve it, and really getting to that right solution. So we also at this phase will test our idea with customers. Often it may be like a prototype that we're doing some usability testing. We also have some other methodologies that we'll use. And so we'll get the idea in front of our users and iterate on it. That will help as we go into development to ensure that we're headed in the right direction and getting some user feedback. And then once we've delivered an MVP and continue to release features to market, it's really important that we continue to learn in market and get feedback from our users and also look at our analytics and how we can continue to improve over time. Our goal is to really focus on reusable and scalable solutions that have like a longevity and help provide that value for our customers. So I wanted to go a little bit into design, just in case there's some folks that have joined that don't work day to day with designers or looking to build out your design organization. We have a product design organization at Kroger across our customer and employee facing experiences. And our goal is to really leverage thoughtful research to create great designs and experiences for our customers and our users. So when you break this down a little bit further, there's a lot of terms that are out there around user experience, customer experience, and I thought it may be helpful just to talk about those first. So customer experience is all those touch points that your customers have with your brand and your company. So this could be like a physical environment, like at Kroger, we have our stores. It could be marketing you're receiving, social media, it could be word of mouth, it could be your digital experiences. All those collectively over time have an impression on your customer, and that's like your collective customer experience. And then user experience is really a practice of user-centered design, and our product designers all practice user experience as part of our role. And this is really just making sure that you deeply understand your users and you iteratively find ways to do that through research. So you're creating an experience that delivers on their needs, their goals, and then their behaviors. Some people get that confused with UI design, so I thought it'd be good to talk about that a little bit. But user interface design is really like that front presentation layer of the experience. So it includes like looking at usability, using consistency. A lot of organizations now have like a design system where they have like front end components that can be like reused over time. So you have a consistent experience for your users. And that is a really key part of user interface design. And then user research is a really important part of that. And at Kroger, we have a dedicated user research team. We also find ways to enable like our designers to do research as well. And user research is really looking at methodologies that help us understand our target audience and then evaluate that impact on them. So I'll talk a little bit about some of those techniques that we use in research. When I joined Kroger about a year and a half ago, one of the first things that we worked on as we were standing up our user research team was to create mission and principles. And the goal of this was really to help people understand how to work with us, what to expect from us, and also help them feel inspired by the research itself. So our mission of user research at Kroger is to really drive that deep understanding of our users, drive empathy. And so we really, like with empathy, we want people to feel emotionally connected to who we're designing for. Product managers, developers, QA, Scrum masters, we want everyone to really understand like our users, whether it's our customers or employee users. And that is really important for us. So we'll partner with our teams to also ensure that the research is actionable. So it's something that can help them understand how to take these insights and turn them into solutions. So we are inspiring them with thoughtful experiences. So the five research principles that support our mission, the first one is resourceful. So at Kroger, we're really beneficial to have a lot of different sources of data. We have data science, we have analytics, we have market research, we have a lot of different resources, and then we're also doing user research on our product teams. And so our goal is that we don't want to redo something that has already been done and is relevant. So we want to make sure that our research is accessible. So we have been building a hub or a repository that makes it easy for our product teams to access research that has already been done and help them focus on research. So the idea is that when we do research, we're augmenting and building on the data and research that we already have. The next one is curious and driven. So we want to make sure that we are not going into research to try to validate an idea. We want to stay open-minded to ensuring that we're letting our users guide us. And so we're really allowing ourselves to uncover like the root of the problem, where we have opportunities, and where we may need to pivot from what we set out to do originally. The next one is being holistic. So if we are building a digital experience as an example, we don't just want to focus in on an interaction, like how they're interacting with a button. Do they notice it? That's important, but we really want to look into their broader context. We want to really understand that whole environment that they're in and their goals. So what do they really set out to do? Why are they here, and why can we help them? So as an example, is like we when we've done research, we've had customers that say that they place their grocery order in bed. It's dark. They have like low lighting, and they're trying to place an order for the next day. And so they're just trying to kind of like make sure they're remembering everything and getting the best savings and kind of get through the experience swiftly. And so just having that full context can help influence the way that we approach a design and an experience. It's also important for us to be lean. So that's our fourth principle. We want to make sure that we're tailoring our research methods to really just focus in on what we need to learn. I'll talk a little bit about how we do that. But our goal is to do smaller iterations of research that are very focused to help the product team through what they're trying to solve in their sprint. And then the idea is if we can really have that repository and rich base of knowledge, we can just continue to build our understanding of our users over time. So those iterative rounds of research can really build up to that larger understanding. And then the last one, my favorite, is empathetic. So our CIO said in a town hall last year, we relentlessly focus on our customers. And I was really inspired by that and included that in our principle. So we want to make sure we're listening to them. We're really uncovering those deep insights with research. And then also involving our cross-disciplinary team with the research every step of the way. So they're empowered in turn with a user-first mindset as well. And I'll talk about some of those techniques that we use for that as well. I also wanted to talk a little bit about research ops because it has been a really important part to working in an agile environment and working really quickly with research. So our research ops is a really important practice within our user research and product design team. Our approach has really been inspired by Rosenfeld Media. They have a research ops community of practice that they've launched, and they've done a lot of research with researchers to really determine the best approach for this. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with DevOps, and it's a very similar point of view where we're looking at like how can we really build out best practices, templates, ways of working, spend some time on planning that operational piece. So when we go to do research, we can stand it up and move very quickly and do it in a very mature way as well. And this is how we're able to arm our designers on the product teams to do research by having these tools available to them. And so the map that you're seeing here was inspired by Rosenfeld Media. They did a survey globally with researchers just to understand like what research ops means to everyone. So at Kroger, what we did is we got our team of designers together that do research regularly, as well as our research team. and looked at like what, when we think about research ops, what are the most important things for us at Kroger? And then we went to prioritize them, and divide and conquer to tackle these initiatives. And so, like a lot of the things we tackled first were making sure we had good recruiting processes. We had good practices from like a legal standpoint, and protecting privacy, and just really getting some of those foundational elements underway, so we could really start maturing our research practice. And so we've continued to refine and grow research ops over time, with using this map as a guide. So now I wanted to talk a little bit about techniques that you can leverage to help bring inspirational research to your product teams. I think it's really important with research to look at how to uncover insights. And so, as you're creating like different steps in the research process, really focusing on how you can really get to your target audience to share with you, like, what are their attitudes, what are their beliefs, really getting that emotional connection to them, really getting to some of those nuggets can really help elevate your customer needs, or user needs, if your audience isn't necessarily customers. These are just like really nuggets of information that make a lot of sense when you hear them, and really help drive empathy and inspire the team. And so it's really important to step back and also understand how your experiences can provide unique value to your target customers. So when doing research, just really uncovering like what are their unmet needs and goals, not just looking at like tasks that they're doing, but like why ultimately are they here? What are they trying to do? What are problems are they trying to solve? For us at Kroger, we're understanding like how does grocery play a role into that? People, when they come to us, they're looking to buy food, but why are they buying food? Are they trying to stay more healthy for their family? Are they trying to save money and they're on a restricted budget? Are they really looking at ways they can stay safe during the pandemic, and not have to go into the store? So those are all things like really having that deeper context can help provide like that deeper experience, and help inspire the product teams. So, one of the things we do when we do research is create a research plan. So, usually this is led by a researcher or a product designer on the team, and we do this very collaboratively with our cross-functional product team. This is a step where we slow down a little bit so we can move fast. If any of you are from an agency background, this is similar to a creative brief, where we're basically just working with the team to understand like what value the research is going to bring, and make sure that we're focusing on the right things. And so we include like the background of the initiative that the research is for. We go in with a lean hypothesis. So what problem are we trying to solve? Why do we think we're going to solve this problem? And then what are our goals for the research itself? Like what are we really trying to learn? And we also have a discussion with the product team of like what are we trying to ask or learn, what are those specific questions, and those are often carried then through the discussion guide, and we learn from our product team what's on their minds, like what do they want to make sure that we include in this research. Um, those first four items really help inspire like what is the right research methodology for us to do. Do we need to talk to customers directly or users? Do we need to go observe them and really understand what's going on? Our goal is to go beyond like what they're telling us as much as possible, to like really understand like what they're thinking and feeling. And so we try to use a range of methodologies that really help focus in on those gaps of understanding that we have. And then we have a very targeted conversation on who we're designing for. So making sure that we're talking to the right people. Sometimes we may want to be targeting, as an example, like people that are new to e-commerce, and they may not be as technically savvy. Like what we found during the pandemic is we had a lot of new customers coming that haven't used e-commerce grocery before. And so if we're trying to tailor an experience to them, how can we do research with that specific target audience? Because we would get very different results if we're talking to a more savvy audience, as an example. And then if we have any budgetary needs, we cover that as well at this step. So again, the research plan is just a way for us to make sure before we start moving that we have all the right considerations underway, and that we have that understanding so we can follow the right approach. So when we go to do the research, we want to make sure that we involve the full product team and our stakeholders as much as possible. We invite them to come and observe the research itself. Before the pandemic, we would often, if we had a user or a customer coming in for research, we would typically like kind of set up a feed to another room where we would have our product team together where they could collaborate and talk during the research itself. Now that we've moved to remote research with a lot of our customers, what we do is we'll set up a video conference call. We'll interview or do testing with our customers, and then we invite our product team to come in and observe remotely. They stay silent observers, but we also allow them to like have a direct line to us as the moderators that they can ask any probing questions that they want the moderator to ask or anything like that. And so we allow them to participate in the research that way. And that way they're getting like that really firsthand insight on our users. And then sometimes we'll go into the store, like with some of our associate experiences as an example. So we try to record as much as we can and take pictures and bring those back to the team so they can get as close to those experiences as possible. Sometimes we've even done some live feeds of the research going on in the store that they can observe real time and see that full experience. And so that observation is really critical. We really try to let our team members know as soon as possible that we're doing the research so they can make the time and participate. And we found that really gets them very engaged and wanting to participate in more studies down the road as well. We also look at activities that can help really open up our minds of our users and really help them share more information with us. And I'll talk a little bit about affinity mapping, which is a technique that we use to help get our teams involved in the research as they're watching it. So when we're doing the research, we really try to bring in as many creative activities as we can so we can get our users, participants to open up to us. Some examples of this, we did a bullseye one time where we were talking about budgeting and saving money. So what we had was like in the middle of the target, we had the customer talk about like what their ultimate goal was with budgeting and saving money. What on the outside ring, it was like, what are some of those environmental factors that influence it? On the outside was, what are maybe some things that get in the way or unexpected things that happen that influence your ultimate goal. And so it was a sensitive topic, but by like kind of focusing in on that, we were able to like really get the customers to open up and talk about new things. We also had them build an assistant. So those are like kind of the three vertical lines you see on the bottom middle. And what we did is like, if you had an assistant that could really like do anything for you for this problem, what would you want them to say? What would you want them to do? And what would you want them to show you? And that also was like another creative way we could get people to like really start thinking and give us a lot more insight. You're also seeing some sketches that we've had some of our customers do. And so sometimes like we've asked them to like share ideas with us of how we could improve and then sketch out some of those ideas. And so it just really kind of gets their mind thinking. And it's not that we would like take that idea and like implement it exactly, but through these participatory design exercises, what we do is help inspire the team with some ideas from the customer. We see key themes as we do this across different participants, and then help inspire the team as we go into like our discovery phases as well. We've also done like journey mapping where we've had our users just like kind of map out different steps in the process and what's working and not working. And those have been just some different creative ways we've done research in addition to like traditional interviews or observations or other types of generative research. So I mentioned that we do affinity mapping, and with affinity mapping, what we're doing is working with our team as they're observing the research to provide some key insights. So what we ask them to do, I'll talk a little bit about how we're doing this virtually now, but when we were all in person, what we would do is we have everyone in a room observing together, and we give them post-it notes, and we'd ask them anytime like you see a pain point, a really insightful quote, or an opportunity for us, or just an observation, just write it down on a post-it note. You can see this starts out pretty messy. Like we just have people sharing ideas. Now that we're virtual, we're using Mural, which is like a virtual whiteboarding and design tool. And it's great because it automatically digitizes everything. And so we've been capturing our insights that way as well. And this really ignites active discussion. So as our teams, our product teams are observing the research, they're getting very invested in the conversation as they're writing these post-its. And then they start sparking some conversations with their team members. So we still do traditional note taking and recordings of the sessions that we'll do for like a larger analysis. But this is a way that we can really get the team involved and help accelerate capturing those insights. So after we are done with the research, what we'll do is we'll get with the product team to have a follow-up session, and we will prioritize what we are hearing. So maybe we heard key themes repeatedly with different participants. We'll also organize that affinity map. So you saw on the previous slide how messy it can get during research. So we'll work on like categorizing it and building it out into themes. And then we do a dot voting exercise to help focus in on what are those top priorities. So it continues that conversation from observing the research. It really makes it actionable because the team is invested in like, how can we really solve these problems and really embrace these opportunities. And it gives really quick insights. So I mentioned in the beginning about like how when I used to work in waterfall, the research process would take a really long time. We want to be able to get the team into their design sprint as quickly as possible. So the idea is like, since we've had this conversation, we work together to prioritize, the team can go and start building. As a researcher, we'll still do a deeper dive analysis, and we'll do a findings report that will then go into our repository that I had mentioned earlier. So we have that artifact of the research itself. But this is how the team can like really start moving fast and start benefiting from those insights from the research. So we'll often create artifacts as the next phase. So we may create journey maps that go through like a steps in the process, and like where do we have some opportunities to like really hone in on and improve the experience. We may do a service blueprint, which kind of shows some of that like from our employee experiences, like what's that front end customer experience, as well as like what are all the things that we're doing on the back end, what are all of our technologies and systems and processes enabling that, and how does that all tie in together. We've also done personas and proto personas. I've heard some like slack for personas, and if they're done at a superficial level and they're like more stereotypical without like those really rich deep insights from research, personas are not a good tool. But if you can really go in and get those really rich nuggets of information and drive that empathy of who you're designing for, personas can be a really great tool to tell like a story, give a name and a face to the users that your team's designing for, and really to help summarize a lot of that research. So next I wanted to talk a little bit about how research inspires our discovery phase. So when we go into that second tier I was talking about in our process, where we're going through our discovery and design sprint, it's really important we set it up with the right elements. So as a carryover from the research, we want to make sure we understand like who's our target audience, who are we really designing for, and then really bringing in those insights from the research that can help the team focus in the sprint. And that's where like that prioritization and the affinity map can be helpful, because you can bring those key insights to the top. We also ensure that we have a collaborative team there. In order to really make sure that something's technically feasible, you really need development. I've really been inspired in the past with engineers in the room who really know the technology and can really help ideate of how can we solve this problem with the right solution. Product managers have a lot of knowledge of customer and business and the technology itself, and they have a lot of key insights, and as well as scrum masters and QA, and key stakeholders as well. Like really having all those different points of view really open up those healthy debates, healthy conflict that really get to those better ideas and help innovate. And they're really understanding like why we're here from a business standpoint, like how can we really drive value for the business, and stay on brand for what our company stands for. And then going into that discovery session, we want to make sure that we focus in on our design challenge. How might we solve this problem for the customer? So as we go into that design sprint, we ensure that we go into an ideation session inspired by those insights and collaborate. At Kroger, one of the things too that we've done, and I mentioned earlier how we'll do usability testing and iterative prototype testing with our users. Another thing that we've done is with the pandemic getting as high as it was, and really creating a big demand on grocery e-commerce. In Cincinnati, Ohio, we turned one of our stores, our retail stores, into a full pickup store, like where a customer could order groceries online and come and pick them up. We had such a high volume of demand. It was hard in the spring to really kind of keep all those time slots open. So within a few weeks, we converted a traditional store over to a pickup store. And in addition to being able to help serve our customers, like we found customers were driving like a half hour away just to get a time slot and not have to go into the store. It enabled us to provide a great service to them. It also gave us a great place, like with high volume for e-commerce, to test our solutions. So we would develop a solution, develop an MVP, and we're still doing this today. We'll launch a pilot, get some feedback from our customers and our employee users, and continue to iterate before we roll it out to a larger group. So what you're seeing here in the bottom with the mobile experience where it says Mount Carmel Grocery Pickup is a mobile check-in. So we enabled our customers to be able, instead of calling on the phone when they got there, we converted that over to, they still had the option to call in, but we also offered a mobile check-in. So when they got there, they could just open up their mobile web or their app and check in that way. So we could bring the groceries out to them. And so this was like an early iteration of that experience. We since evolved it into On My Way. So customers can tell us when they're leaving their house and we can start to get their order ready. So when they get there, we can reduce their wait time. So we've been able to pilot that type of functionality and iterate on it over time. To the right there, you're seeing an employee using one of our applications for shopping for our customers. And so she's looking at how like she's scanning produce so she can shop for that for the customer. We've continued to iterate on those solutions as well. Um, so as we're looking to learn and market, it's important that we try these pilots. And then we also want to make sure that we look at our analytics. We look at our voice of the customer feedback. So we leverage Qualtrics to solicit input from our customers on our experiences so we can continue to improve. That has been really key for us during the pandemic because our customers' needs were so rapidly changing, and we really have been keeping a really strong pulse on that customer feedback, and it's helped us to like really iterate quickly on solutions for their changing needs, and being able to making sure that we're setting strong success metrics up front when we're starting our discovery. So when we do launch and we're in market, to make sure that we're meeting our goals, we're meeting the metrics we set out to do, and we're really getting the engagement that we want. So just a few takeaways to wrap up with. Hopefully this will kind of help you think about some ways to bring to your teams and continue to iterate on how you work. But it's important for teams to be set up to focus on customers, making that important goal of how the team works and what success looks like. Being product led, like we found that product led ways of working has really helped to empower the team to work quickly and swiftly and make those key decisions. Continue to find ways to be creative, whether it's in the research itself and finding new ways to get participants to open up, to also how the product team works and collaborates together. And then really ensuring that the teams are engaged every step of the way, that they're involved in the research, that collaboration continues. And then finally, just staying curious, like ensuring that we continue to learn from the changing needs of customers and end users, and we can continue to iterate on solutions over time so we can continue to drive value for them. And again, I would recommend the book Inspired by Marty Kagan and the book Sprint by Jake Knapp. Both of those books have been really helpful as we've continued to evolve like our product led ways of working and really having great design thinking and discovery with cross functional product teams. So, any questions?
Great. I believe there is one in the chat window. David, I think he asked a question here. What customer matrix do you use to support the business values?
What customer matrix we use to support the business values?
Yep.
Metrics, sorry.
Oh, metrics.
Metrics.
Okay, got it. Thank you. For customer metrics, we look at some different. It depends on the experience. So, we look at like on our site and our app. We want to ensure that we have like I think some of the kind of more typical analytics we look at is we want to make sure people are coming back. We have repeat and engaged users. They're coming on a regular basis. If they're e-commerce customers, we want to look at ways we can continue like to make sure we're servicing them with like the right product selection and the right offerings. So we'll look at things like the size of, we call it size of basket, but like how many products are they putting in their order, how often are they coming back to us. We want to make sure that they're happy and they continue to come back. So those are some of the things that we'll look at. And then we also look at that customer satisfaction piece. So with voice of the customer, we have some key like metrics that we ask them, like how satisfied they were with the experience and getting some ratings on that. And we've also asked them like how satisfied are they with the site and the app and the ability of that to help them with the goals of why they're there. So those are some of the key ones we've looked at. There's some other parts of the experience that are like kind of more targeted to different things like savings. And so each of our product teams that work in those areas like have different metrics that they'll look at as well.
Thank you.
Sure.
Does this tie into marketing as well?
It's a good question. We do not have the marketing organization as part of our department, but we collaborate very closely with them. We collaborate to make sure like any marketing or brand messages that are out there that we can connect that to the digital experiences that we work on. And that like our brand really comes to life. So we work with them to ensure like our design system has like our brand elements and it ensures like it really feels like an extension of Kroger. So it's more of a collaboration than like a direct involvement.
Okay. Cheers.
Great. I think there is another question. Is it Mary? How do you interact with the product owner on Scrum teams?
With the product owner? Is that
Yes.
what the question?
Yeah.
So we work the product, we have a product manager. So with our team structure, we have a product manager, product designer, and the technology team, which will include QA as well, and the Scrum Master. So the product manager plays a key part in like that product owner role. And so the product owner is like, I'd say, one of our really like kind of key team members that we collaborate through the research. We work very hard to like ensure, like when we're meeting to go over the research plan or setting up things, that's one of the key people we want to make sure that we include, because we want to bring them along in the process and have them involved in the research as well. Sometimes we even have the product manager come to us with a research request as well, just for areas of understanding that they're looking for. So when we're setting up the research plan, we ensure that they're there and they're weighing in on like what the research should focus on, like what questions are we looking for. We'll share the discussion guide with them, and then invite them to observe in the research and then the collaborative sessions as well. So yeah, they're a very key part every step of the process.
I hope it answered your question. So maybe we can go to the next one. Is it Fabio? When do you move from the inspiration phase to the ideation phase?
Yeah, so what we do is we'll go through the research. So we'll work with our product team, just like help set up the timeline of like how long the research is going to take. We typically try to have the research go through as swiftly as possible. So I mentioned that like the research ops piece. We look at recruiting methods that allow us to like very quickly get access to our users, whether it's like our customers or like our associate employee users. And so we ensure that inspiration phase is like time boxed. We want to do it right. We really look for the balance of like ensuring that we're doing it right and getting valid insights. So we're talking to the right amount of people, and that we're keeping it moving as swiftly as possible. But usually that inspiration phase, like we know it's over. Like if we start to hear like reoccurring themes from our participants. A lot of what we do is qualitative research, so we're more like having conversations and observing users. Sometimes we'll do quantitative, but because we have so much different sources of like data and research that's more quantitative and research across the company, we typically focus more on qualitative. So once we kind of hear key themes like repeatedly from different customers, and we feel like we're starting to get like a good understanding that this is something that is prevalent in many of our customers and something that we can to start to design from, that's kind of when we know we've done enough research with this iteration. So usually like our research itself, like in that inspiration phase, will last a couple weeks, and then we'll have that next phase of ideation like kind of already planned to go right away. So we'll have like kind of a timeline of this is how long that inspiration phase is going to go. We'll know when it's over, and then we can already kind of be ready to jump into that ideation phase. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm not sure if the person who asked this question is on the call. Actually, he has two parts to the question. There was a second part to the question, was what triggers that decision. I believe you answered that.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's what we have in the chat window. If anyone likes to ask anything, we do have we can take maybe one or maybe two. We have
I'll ask a
three.
question.
Yep.
Me again, hope you don't mind. Christine, how often do you go directly from the research directly into build? Meaning,
I'm sorry, directly into what?
into development. So meaning skipping the
Like
the
in that
ideation?
design sprint phase,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
discovery. Yeah. We we go into that discovery phase first before development. But sometimes like we'll make that design, that ideation phase like smaller. So it kind of depends how big it is. Like if we're standing up like a new product or like a really large feature set from scratch, we want to make sure we're spending enough time and due diligence
Yeah,
to do that.
that makes sense.
Sometimes, yeah, and then sometimes like we may get some feedback that we need to like tweak or adjust an experience to help like maybe another like a part of our target audience, or like just like kind of evolve an existing idea. So it's like a smaller iteration of maybe like something that's already out there. So for that, like we really want to make sure that we're adjusting that like discovery ideation phase appropriately. So we may do it in a very like short amount of time. Like we may only need like a day or two in some cases, but and then we'll move into that development. So it's important that we like kind of look at like how big is this problem, and just like adjust appropriately. Make sure we have that phase of collaboration and talk about it as a team before like we really like jump into development, but um, size it appropriately.
That's great. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, if anyone has any more questions, feel free to unmute yourself. We can take maybe one or two more questions. I'm looking at the clock. Yeah, maybe one more.
I can ask a question again if no one else is going to ask. But is anyone else going to ask a question? Okay, so sometimes on my teams, I like to have a design person on the team to build along with the team. And that person working with the product owner sort of goes back to maybe, I like the term research ops. How do you set up the teams? Do you set them similarly, or how are the teams set up to include your work other than just passing it along?
The research, how they include the research, is that what you mean?
Yeah, so for instance, as I said, I have a design person on the team, so on the core
Right.
development team, and that person will be building out. And then like a COE, Center of Excellence or whatever you use, a hub or whatever. And
Yeah.
that person goes back working with, like-minded people in design and feeds back that information back to the team. I was just wondering if you do a similar type of process, or is yours more linear? We go through, we get the data, we move it either into that ideation phase, or we give it to the team. How do you do that?
Yeah. I hope I answer your question right. Let me know if I'm not. Our user researchers are kind of like that center of excellence. So they will like gravitate toward a product team and work with them through this process that I just outlined with the research. We also empower like our product designers who are like embedded on the product teams to do research, like with our research ops piece of it. So we may consult with them as they go through the research process. But either way, like whichever model we use, our goal is like to really get the product team like kind of involved like every step of the way. So they're like consulting on like how we're approaching the research and watching the research, and just ensuring that it's involving everyone like throughout that process. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. It
Okay.
aligns.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Great. Thanks, David. And thanks, Christine. Fantastic presentation. I think I have so many takeaways. I have noted down the book also. So definitely something that I probably would want to go through during this holiday season. So thanks everyone for making time for this talk today evening. And I wish everyone a nice and good holidays, and enjoy the break. And that is our this is our last webinar for the year. So I wish everyone a happy new year and a brighter 2021.
Thanks, Navas.
Thank you. Stay
Thanks.
safe.
Thank you.
You too.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
That's great.
Thank you. Fabulous presentation.
Thank
Happy
you.
holidays.